Let's talk a little bit about quarterbacks. So Kevin Stefanski is a really good play designer. We know his offense. He's a really good play caller. Take a look at the quarterbacks that he has had to work with throughout his career. And we went back to the time he became the OC in Minnesota, where he came from. So Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, Kirk Cousins, Sean Mannon, Baker Mayfield. Remember, that was Baker Mayfield years 3 and 4 in his NFL career. Mullins, Brissett, Watson. That obviously didn't work out. Flacco, Walker, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Driscoll, Jameis Winston, Bailey Zappi. Those are not elite NFL quarterbacks. I would argue most of those guys, you have to call plays around what their skill set is. So it's kind of interesting. This is really the first time in Cleveland where he's been involved in a decision to go out and get a quarterback, draft one at least, relatively high, and he chose Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think you can see, I think there are elements to both Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders' skill set that sync up well with Kevin Stefanski and his offense. I think Dylan Gabriel brings actually more of that sort of play action, big play threat down the field than Shedeur Sanders does. But I think Sanders could actually be that very efficient quarterback over the middle. Either way, I think both of them are an interesting fit within this offense. And, like you said, their third round, fifth round pick, these are not guys that have a huge chance of becoming the next guy, right? Just the data says most of the time, both of these guys are not going to work out. And that's why I think you take both of them, because the chances are neither one of them is going to be good, but you might as well double your chance that one of them shows something different than people expected at draft time. Look, the chances are the most likely thing to happen for Cleveland is that they are picking at the top of next year's draft and they're targeting a new franchise quarterback and a new future. But with that in mind, I think this is a really smart way of approaching the quarterback position to throw multiple darts at young guys this year who, if either one of them hit, becomes, the most valuable thing that this team could have.
As much as I want to say, the whole height thing is overplayed. You got to be a special kind of quarterback if you're going to be under 6 foot and play in the NFL. The numbers just say that, correct?
Well, I think that's changing a little bit. So I think with all these smaller quarterbacks in recent years, I think it's easier than it's ever been before to survive, to be functional in the NFL at a shorter height. But I think it might put a cap on how good you can be. So, we're seeing with guys like Bryce Young, I mean, even Baker Mayfield, if you want to throw him into that bucket as a short-ish quarterback. All of these guys can clearly play at the NFL level, but can you be a superstar with that? Because you can't play the game the way Peyton Manning did, right? Even Russell Wilson, who's maybe the best sort of, if we put Drew Brees in his own category and sub 6 foot quarterback, Russell Wilson might be the best of those guys in the last sort of decade plus. And even when he was at his very best, he didn't play the game the way Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or even Aaron Rodgers played the game. He had to have his own unique style. And even the peak version of Russell Wilson, there was a question about whether that was good enough or whether something needed to change, whether they needed to, quote unquote, let Russ cook. But I think that was just part of how he had to play the game at that size. And, the same thing is true with Kyler Murray. He has to play the game in a unique way because of his size. Bryce Young is going to need to feel that out as well. So, I think it's definitely not that difficult now to be a solid NFL starter as a shorter quarterback. But I think there's still a debate and it's still an open question about whether you can really be, a star, whether you can be an all-pro, a franchise quarterback at that height.